All right, so let's talk about the first impression of the new era of Real Housewives of New York City. Such a special franchise. You know, a lot of times it's about who essentially put Real Housewives as an entirety on the map, you know, to the level that it went. You know, obviously a big show is always going to be a big show, big numbers, big ratings, but like, you know, there's always a talk. And while I know a lot of people want to say maybe Jersey, you know, Teresa being the first one to go through some of the things she went through outside of the table flip, et cetera, you know, people will say Jersey did it. I hear a lot of people saying Atlanta, you know, early on was the big powerhouse. And if you ask me, side note, Atlanta didn't become Atlanta until, I mean, no diss to everyone on season 1, 2, and 3 and 4, but until the great Kenya Moore came through and gave the refreshing newness that Atlanta needed. But anyways, and then some people say the crown jewel is Beverly Hills. Kyle's on the show, so there's no way that could be true because she's, you know, quite boring on the show. Season 1, episode 1, frame 1. This will never change. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about who put Real Housewives on the map, and I'm curious to know what everyone thinks. That's number one. I wonder who Andy thinks is the franchise that essentially put this show, you know, in this worldwide phenomenon. You know. Anyways, I mentioned all that to say that I personally feel that it is New York City. Part of it is just the way it jumped off the page, if you will. There was something special in that. There was something very unique to Bethany coming in, being the character that, you know, the way it was sold at least, that started with quote unquote nothing, because obviously she didn't have nothing, but like to see that ascension through way of the program, like documenting that, like following that story was wonderful, you know. So to me, it's always been New York. It's always been that initial Ramona, Luann, excuse me, the Countess, Alex McCord, and Bethany. Like that always felt like the strongest and the show that really like crossed over early on, and then like, you know, you'd be showing up in page 6 and you would be showing up in the quote unquote tabloids of that era, you know. So to me it's always going to be New York, which makes me want to talk a little bit very quickly, we'll do a quick episode here about this newness of Real Housewives of New York. First though, can we do a little quick note in the comments? Let me know, that's the question of this episode, who put Real Housewives as a franchise on the map? Again, in my mind, you could have different opinions, but I think it would be New York. I think New York initially had done something that was so magical. And to think the show was going to be, what was it, Manhattan Moms or whatever the case? Bethany was maybe not even going to, you know, or didn't start filming initially. So it's always really crazy to see when things work, especially within the worlds that I've worked in radio. So you see so many things that should go, but don't go. And then you see things that maybe were going but needed to be tweaked and retooled, and then all of a sudden the success is there. It's like one of those weird things where you could never really predict it. You can put the best product forward, but you don't really know until you know. Which leads us to, after I have stated that Real Housewives of New York as an entirety is the ultimate of the network. And I say that standing behind season 13, because season 13 wasn't that bad. Ramona was that bad. But the show still, it's still, you know, for me, it's always about, it's New York. You know, I'm a Southern California kid, of course, you know, grew up in Southern California, but spent in the entirety about 7 years in New York City. So I just like love the place. I've had a lot of my successes in New York. New York just feels, I mean, you know, people say it on Sex and the City. It feels like that other character. Some people say that's cliche, but I think no, it's actually not cliche, because it really does lend to a certain level of, you know, fun and excitement and accomplishment based on this wonderful, wonderful city. So let's talk about the new New York. But before we do that, of course, I got to tell you all the things. So let's go ahead and do a quick, you know, a word, okay? Let's do a word, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to tell you what I think about Jenna Lyons, Aaron, and like this new group, Uba, Giselle, just all this magic, you know? But first, a quick word.
Well, hello there. Thank you for watching and supporting the show with my good friend, RandomlyRJ Jr. Who the hell am I? Great question. My name is Mark Rodriguez with Mastermind Media, and I wanted to take just a moment of your time to let you know about all the other incredible things this guy, RandomlyRJ Jr. has going on. But first, before we get into that, please comment, like, and subscribe. That is how he grows here on these channels. But one channel you probably don't know about is patreon.com/RandomlyRJ Jr., where he's got a bunch more exclusive content. So please check that out. But speaking of YouTube, let's go back to YouTube for a second. He's got this hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. and it shows all of his stuff in his days in radio from back in the day, all the way up to present day, and his new interviews, podcasts, just videos across the board. So please check that out, because when you think about content creators, there's millions of content creators, but there's only one, Randomly Ronnie Jr. Let's get back into the show.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Yes. Jump on that Patreon. And if you are a Real Housewives of New York actual cast member watching this and saying, I love what's going on, hit that Patreon, help me out. Okay. So let's talk about the new season. In my opinion, I think that actually season 13 should have just pushed through, dealt with the big issues, and reworked the original show. I had no problem with that. I felt like there still were such powerhouses, and we're seeing that because we're seeing that Luann and Sonia, this Welcome to Crappy Lake is like an unexpected huge hit, that even though it's a version of A Simple Life, the one with Nicole and Paris back in the day, it's still like not even about the formula of the show, although that does work too. It's that Luann and Sonia know how to do this so well. I personally don't know how the networks necessarily make all these decisions. Granted, I've worked in radio for a long time. I've worked in production a long time as well. All of these different jobs throughout the course of my my run in my career. But I don't necessarily know how they make those big decisions. I think there will always be a void, and they say this with love and support, but I think there will always be a void that the fact that Ramona and some of the stuff she stepped into, and it's not blaming Ramona, she still is a talent, but to never have to go there based on the season that was created. Now, there was other elements to that season. Season 13 was the world shut down. That's very difficult, to film, going through that. Lackluster Leah, or it's not lackluster. She just wasn't bringing something good to the show. She probably is wonderful. Just there was like a weird, what is she doing? Anyways, so my bigger point before I get into the new gals is that I really think there didn't even need to be a set of new gals at the beginning. I didn't think that was necessary per se. I think they had something pushed through. It's still daunting to me that Ebony never got a reunion, like never ever. No special, no, there's a part of me that's like, that feels like a void, maybe not even for me, but for her, in the comments, let me know if you think that's even a thing. Me personally, I feel a void for her. It's not like she doesn't continue to work though, but you go on this show, there's certain things at the cachet that the show does give to you that you want to kind of redeem, So it's great that she continues to push through. It would be like you being in your regular job or whatever your job is and being let go. And yes, you still flourish, but doesn't mean you're not like, like there was this opportunity and it didn't. So anyways, with all that being said, it's saying that there was a part of me that was really just cool with the original gals. Mostly because I like a housewife of a certain age, I love style-wise, I know we like the hot young things, and listen, when I do Real Housewives of New Jersey recaps, I am all about that Melissa Gorga, which a lot of people try to read me for like, oh, you just like, what does she bring to the table? She's just the pretty girl. No, she's the icon. Thank you. She is Real Housewives of New Jersey, not the other lady who nudged a table. She never flipped a table. She nudged a table. Nonetheless, Melissa is, of course, I think she's around my age, like 40, 42. Maybe 43. But the point is, I don't got a problem with the cast always being these young, hot, I don't know. It's cool. It's cute to see too. But what I'm telling you is I miss like a Dorinda, the Dorinda style choices. I mean, it's like, it's not Golden Girls, but it's like on your way to Golden Girls, and I like that. So anyways, I'm doing so many prefaces before I get into the new cast, because I just want to be clear that while I love this new cast going forward, if you could throw people that are 45, 55, 65, or whoever could still play in the arena and make sense to the show, I'm still down for that. So going into it, I was like everyone else. I was like, is this new New York, is it going to work, and how much will it work, you know? And I'm just here to say, basically, I mean, it's not, the commentary here is not breaking the internet. It's the same thing that everyone's saying, that there is something so special here. There is something really, really special. Going through it, of course, the biggest name that jumps off the page is Jenna Lyons. I did love the Jenna Lyons show that she did on HBO. I thought it was a style of reality TV that I enjoy, that I miss. Making the Band, not that it was anything like Making the Band, but I miss shows that have a certain process to them. I miss shows that have a, I'm here, I'm trying to go here. Bethany, I'm here, you're here. No, wasn't that funny? I miss shows that have like a, we are here to be style and design experts. You know, Jenna Lyons, you are the mentor that, you know, kind of puts them through their paces to be that person. I love shows like that. Making the Band, I always say, I mean, for all the shows out there, and a lot of times it's just hiring rich and famous, good-looking people. I understand that's a way to get ratings, but at the same time, there are other ways we could do television, you know? And for me personally, like if I was an executive or I had a network and I want to try something different, I would go off the idea that the world did shut down, right? And think about all those like actors, specifically what's going on right now too. But think of all the people in the creative fields that like lost, you know, a great bit of momentum to, you know, the workforce, their workforce, when the world shut down, you know. You know, things were a little crazy at that time. And so you have all these people that aren't rich and famous, but have a skill set in theater. They could be the lighting people. It could be the world that I mostly have been a part of, which is radio. So many opportunities were lost. So you have this huge talent pool of talents that aren't household names, that don't got the nice, fancy, you know, home and second home and third home, you know, and the beautiful cars, et cetera, but they actually have something to bring to the table. So what I'm saying is, while I love Housewives, I think it is a certain language. Sometimes us as gay men, we really like take to these shows, you know. So you don't necessarily want to not be a part of it. You want to understand the language. You want to know what turtle time means. You know, you want to know, Bethany, I'm up here, you're down here type. You want to know. So while that's all good and dandy, I still do think there's also room for shows with a little bit of process. And that is what Jenna Lyons' show did. It gave us a little bit of process. Is that the word? Like it gave us here's the start point. I'm going to go through these challenges to become this. You know, this is what essentially Bethany did when she did Martha Stewart's Apprentice. It's essentially what I did when I did Fuse TV's Who Wants to Be, you know, a VJ for the Daily Download on, you know, Fuse TV back in 2005, where I was the runner-up. Should have been the winner. Should have been the winner. Should have had a fat contract, you know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I like shows like that. So that, on top of everyone just consistently loving and understanding and kind of seeing the journey of Jenna Lyons throughout the years, it made so much sense. Like I was like, oh my God, I loved her in her HBO series. I remember there was a podcaster who we all adore, the great Jess from Hot Takes and Deep Dives, I believe. In one of her shows, she had like not pitched, but she had brought up the name Jenna Lyons to what would a revamp look like, just as a word. And I remember listening to the show because I love that show, Hot Takes and Deep Dives. And I was like, oh my God, this makes sense. And it makes sense in a way that it doesn't have to be this chaotic show that the show was starting to turn into. You know, the Beverly Hills and the bots, and then the, you know, some of the stuff that went on in Potomac, like the shows. In general, they were Jersey and Current. Everything was sort of changing. So when Bravo announced to do this show and that show, a legacy and a complete revamp, like hearing people, you know, would always pitch out their ideas. I pitched out, you know, just on an episode, I said Cece Sabathia's wife, Amber Sabathia, would make a lot of sense. Although I think she lives in Jersey. Cece Sabathia was a Yankee. I said, well, of course, everyone feels like Carolina Bermudez would be wonderful, but I believe through her radio KTU contract, and I think she does correspondent work for like Extra, it just wouldn't work. I thought maybe, I think she's back on E, back in LA, but I think she moved from LA at a point to come back to the East Coast, living more so upstate, but nonetheless, Adrienne Bailon I thought would have made a little sense too. And who else did I say? Oh, Olivia Palermo would have made sense. It would have made it so regal and so rich and so almost diva-ish, you know, because I think Olivia is like one of the people that could look in a certain way, like it wouldn't work, or not that it wouldn't work rather, but that it would be like stoic. But that works in New York. That is what happens here. You know what I mean? Anyways, these are some of the ideas that I had. But learning that Jenna Lyons was going to be the one was like, oh my God, this works. The other group of gals I hadn't really seen or known. I know Sai at some point is or very prominently, a fashion influencer, which is 1000% a job, because even going from the years I've worked in like traditional spaces like radio, I was a podcast producer at VH1 by way of a production company. So I like doing the jobs with all those resources versus doing it on an independent level, as I can see from YouTube and podcasting, you know, randomly with Ronnie Jr. and patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. Make it rain. I can see and I know that there is a level of such a challenge. So the fact that like, oh, is this work? Is it no? It is work, and for Sai at least, the brand deals are good. So I'm really excited to see her. The concept of Brooklyn works for me. I worked on a TV show called American Latino TV for like 10 years where we produced these wonderful segments. So anytime I could see, you know, the story of this Puerto Rican girl and where she's at now and where she's came from and just all of the journey and not even about the journey, but just about showcasing her greatness. I love that. I love that. Giselle to me is maybe the one that is not necessarily getting the biggest buzz. I don't ever make my decisions based on Twitter, but I think Jessel, I think she is going to be interesting in the show. I think we're going to be so excited to see this. Like, wait, you haven't had Whoopi in some time based on having the kids. I think it's a relatable thing. We can laugh all we want to. You know, we've all had our breaks. I think one of my big breaks was like 7 months, but 2 years is some time. 2 years is some time. But is it some time when you have your husband, he's dedicated to his job, you've got kids under a certain age. Granted, she does have the mom, I believe locally, to help, but you know, I can't speak to it because I'm not married with kids. So I can imagine the flair, the romance, you know, could die out. So I think the story she's going to bring on the show is going to be quite interesting. I think we're going to want to see that. We're going to see like, okay, A or B. Is it a problem? Is there like a root? Or is it we have not been able to prioritize us as the couple? Either way, I think it's going to be great. But here's what I think with Jessel. I think it's more about her being a very witty confessional queen. And not big energy, low energy. Real low. Real like just like she'll be talking, and then it's like just to throw out a comment. And like I feel like there's something there. In terms of who else do we have? Bryn. Oh, the Bryn Whitfield. What a you know, I guess I must have heard it being said that she's very Elizabeth Taylor or like the living the full fantasy. What I had said, I was watching the show with the roommate and I was like, oh no, she gives me, not that she gives me Anna Nicole Smith by any means, but she gives me, and I'm going off the era, my age group, when you grew up in the 90s, like and I'm trying to define what makes it different from now to then, because there was always, you know, men and women, you know, who posed and, you know, Playboy, of course, most, you know, were women, but like she's giving me like Playboy of the 90s, like Anna Nicole Smith guest campaign, the full fantasy, something like that. And again, not that, you know, people have emboldened themselves in a really good way, in a healthy way, to be very like sex positive, and you know, now you could have a best friend that does like, you know, the OnlyFans or whatever the case, and things have changed in a way in terms of how we feel about overall sexuality, I believe, but more so like that va-va-voom that she gives me feels very, not Anna Nicole Smith, maybe Elizabeth Taylor, but it's very to me, 90s Playboy girl from Indiana or wherever she's from. But is it now, that girl in LA or that girl in New York? It feels so relatable, and I'm sure when I finish the episode, I'm gonna find ways to remember what I'm trying to explain. But co-sign to what I'm saying, or in the comments put how do you see her? Is it Elizabeth Taylor? Is it the full fantasy? What is the thing? Aaron, I enjoy Aaron. I love a stoic. What was the comment that everyone loved initially? And again, I'm not making my comments on what everyone stated. I just know that this did very well on Twitter, and that was, oh, she's not from New York. And here's the thing. I'm from Los Angeles, Southern California. Grew up there, but have always been my whole life and career insanely attracted to New York. But even so, I don't fix my mouth ever. I don't ever fix my mouth to say I'm a New Yorker. I have been in and around New York for collectively about 7 years. I would love to live the rest of my life in New York City, of course. Currently, I'm up in Washington Heights, and everything is everything, and we're going. Doing a little work with radio, with Jonesy in the morning, 94.7 The Block, on occasion, and mixing that into just all the beautifulness of New York. And I'm almost forgetting why I mentioned all that. But what I'm saying is I would never, ever fix on a respect level with just the same way you probably would do to LA, or you should never, I'm from LA. No, you're not. And I'm not even a big LA person. I'd much rather live on the East Coast. San Francisco maybe would be my California town. Hopefully the checks start coming in and I could live in multiple locations. But what I'm saying is that simple comment where Aaron said, oh, she's not from New York. Oh, it makes me so happy. A lot of people could sit on the sidelines and be like, oh, that's very mean. It is not mean. In New York, the people are actually so sweet. I would dare to say, and I don't want to do a tangent, but I would dare to say New Yorkers, the heart and the dedication and the real connectivity is so fantastic. But nobody lets you in just willy-nilly. You have got to, I don't want to say earn it, but New Yorkers have to protect their own peace. So they end up being a little more stoic. They end up being, this is just, again, my recollection within the times I've been here, even the neighborhoods I've lived in. I lived in Weehawken, New Jersey. I've lived in Hamilton Heights, Harlem areas. I've been in Bushwick. I've been on the on the border of Bushwick and Bed-Stuy. And I've been in Washington Heights and just a ton of places. And I think the most important thing is loving New York is great, but you can't be this person that just watches Sex in the City and feels like you know it. New York is so special in that way. And what I'm saying is Erin, I don't think is being let on as, she's too mean or whatever. I think she's actually quite lovely. She's probably somebody I would connect with. I always connect usually with really strong boss women. You know what I mean? And I think Erin is kind of giving us that. And above all, she is beautiful. It looks like the relationship with the husband is so fantastic. So I'm definitely here for that. Have I not mentioned anyone else? We talked about Psy, fashion influencer, Puerto Rican, love it. We talked about Jenna Lyons, in terms of already kind of knowing who she is. And of course, I watched every episode of her HBO series. Oh, Uba. We've got to talk about Uba. So Uba's, I guess, cousins of Chanel Ayan from the Dubai season. Chanel Ayan is actually, surprisingly, not my favorite Real Housewives of Dubai cast member. I think she gives a couple great things, but I also think, look at me with my terminology of basketball. If you take a lot of shots, you're going to make one or two. And I think Chanel Ayan does, she hit, another sports term, she does hit a home run, but she has a lot of at-bats. Who am I? Why am I talking about sports like this? But my point is, she is actually not my favorite. There's nothing wrong about that. I love Sarah. I love Lisa. I liked Nina. Who else is there? Oh my God, and that Caroline, I'll do a whole episode on Watch Out World, because that Caroline Brooks is going to be the show. But my Sarah, I love Sarah. Anyways, tangent. Chanel Ayan is cousins with Uba. Where I will drink Uba up immediately is, first of all, these beautiful long legs right off the jump. And there is a certain charisma that she just gives. She's like, we eat 7 bananas a day. I love, nobody could replace anybody, but I love whoever gets there's ways to do really well on these shows. Drama, you could be the who's the next, like, Lucy and Ethel, kind of a thing. And definitely not like even bringing that up in terms of Uba, but like, does she bring a sense of humor that we are ready for? So, yeah, I guess we covered them all. Giselle, Uba, Sai, Bryn, Aaron, and the great Jenna Lyons. And I guess apparently, based on the stories, the other gal that initially was on the show was edited out. So we got something different here. Not to go on and on and on, and not to do like, episode 1 recap. I'm just giving overall thoughts of what I feel is going to go on. And then thinking about like what develops as the frenemy situation. Is the frenemy situation going to be or I mean, the scene off the initial episode, where Aaron falls in the chair, and then them even going with their house clothes to sit on Jenna's bed, which was all bad. But again, I don't know, maybe Jenna should have directed them to another location, but nonetheless, Bryn's humor, but then like, does it lend to frenemy? And, it is, as we said a second ago, it's become this level of like, the bots or some of the really, really off stuff on Jersey or Potomac, like, it's like Girardi, Tom Girardi, like all of these like really big things have been, Jen Shah, Salt Lake City, have been what compelling is. And I've never thought that it needs to be that. So this new angle is actually perfect. And will it hold the test of time? Who knows? This is just a first impression, first reaction. So this is what I like and what I feel. And I'm kind of feeling like there's something here. I don't think, again, compelling needs to be shocking or controversial. I think it just needs to be, and this comes from me working in radio, it's just like, can you deliver quality content or can you not? Oftentimes they'll go into like who can move things on social media. And I'm not going to name a name, but there are like almost one from every franchise, specifically from, no, I'm not going to do it. Specifically from that one where somebody, and Jen Aiden from New Jersey, she's going to get the same as what I'm going to say about, there's some people who don't really move and perform on the show, but either based on their interaction with social media or how they maneuver it or how they say something so asinine it moves kind of well on social media. And that's great. I guess the network respects that, but they're not good on the show. They're not giving anything on the show. And I think each and every one of these cast members has the potential to give something really great on the show. I really like it. I hope you like it as well. This was first impressions, first reactions of the new New York. And instead of being like this versus that, I want to look at it as like, this just opens up the world of Real Housewives of New York, and it opens up the world of New York shows, which there's not many. There was Blood, Sweat, and Heels at one time. I think Melissa Ford is now back in the East Coast. Mix her in some way, somehow. That could work, because she was on Blood, Sweat, and Heels. Obviously, it ended not the greatest, and she was in LA for a while, and now she's podcasting in New York City with the biggest podcast, basically on the planet. Bringing her back in at a time like this could really work. She recently, a couple years ago, went through the struggle of losing her mother. So, I mean, there's nothing that needs to be done right now because there seems to be a cohesive unit. But, like, this doesn't look like anything that's not going to continue to go and grow. But I think you as a human, as all of us, we can still be sad and like, oh, my God, I miss Dorinda on the screen. I wish Ebony would have got another chance. I think Leah has, she got to go on to something else. Luann and Sonia, I'm excited about Ultimate Girls Trip, seeing Kelly Ben Simone and everybody. But I think you don't necessarily need to do a this or that. I think by having Bravo, the network, and Peacock streaming, I think it's just a win-win-win for a New York City show. And again, I mean, I could come up with 18 pitches right off the top of my head in terms of like things that are so relevant in New York City. Again, never gonna fix my mouth to say I'm a New Yorker, but I have spent, about 7 years in total. I've been on New York City radio. I've been on live television based out of New York City, across from Madison Square Garden on Fuse TV. So like New York works for me. I was working at Complex Media. producing a show there for a little bit as well. So New York is like a place that I do call home, but I just feel like there's so much here. So a win for the new era of Real Housewives of New York is a win for New York City, and it's a win for Real Housewives and Bravo looking and exploring new ideas. Let me tell you something. I might be a new idea. You know, if the check clears, or not clears, if the check is right and the contract is right, I might be, you know, something to mess with in terms of building out a show. Because the ideas, based on the long career that I've had that started roughly in 2001, and the ups and downs and the ups and downs and the ooh, and then you're broke. I know it. And one thing that throughout all of that never disappoints, and every New Yorker will feel this, as hard as she is, I don't know why we're calling New York a she, that New York, she will give it to you, but she'll like make you earn it, you know, and that is why it's refreshing. There are your hardest days in New York City, but they also coincide so wonderfully with your best days in New York City. That doesn't happen everywhere. So Jenna, Sai, Aaron, Uba, Giselle, and whoever they bring into the fold, and whatever other New York City shows, like I'd love to see more with the Summer House cast, not necessarily always in the Summer House, which I do love that show, and I'm glad that Martha's Vineyard is coming back for another season. Give me all of the East Coast shows, you know what I mean? So that's just what I think. Question for you, and it was a question that was brought up on the initial Real Housewives of New York Watch What Happens Live episode. Who is the star of the show? And I feel like we got to take Jenna Lyon's name out of it, because I think she's she's not competing with anyone. So even if somebody else rises and becomes the you know, like Aaron or Bryn or Sai or Uba or Giselle, like whoever, Jenna, I think, has positioned herself so wonderfully that there isn't ever really a competition. Like, you're really generally intrigued about her story. Anyways, hit the hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. That was me talking about Real Housewives of New York, the new era. And, oh gosh, should we talk about Bethany and Jill Zarin? Jill Zarin! Pay Jill Zarin what she deserves. Although, in the podcast, which we'll talk about on another episode, I suppose, she did indicate it wasn't about money. I don't know what it was about, but I wish Bravo would find a way to make Jill Zarin work. That's all I got. Let me know what you think of Real Housewives of New York, the new era. This has been Randomly with Ronnie Jr. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.